Good morning to everyone. Today myself Gunjan Kanpal. I am working as a lecturer in College of Nursing, Rama University, Kanpur. Today I am here to take your lecture on the topic IEC. So let's begin with the topic. First of all, what is IEC? IEC stands for Information, Education and Communication. So when we talk about the introduction or the definition of IEC, it is used for generation of awareness among the people. If we are talking in the community, then among the people who are living in that community or within the individual also. It is a process of working with the individual or group to develop the communication strategies to promote the positive behavior within the individual or the group we are promoting or giving the IEC. So basically IEC is the use of information which we are having so that we can convert that information in the education area, and we can promote that education by using different means of communication so that people who are living in the community or who are in need of that information can get that information and utilize it in their livelihood. Now next is, what is the concept of IEC? When we are talking about the concept of IEC, mainly there are three things. First is the information. When we are talking about the information, it is only the facts and figures which we are having in our hand. Example from the medical sides, if I am saying that there are X number of people who are diagnosed with lung cancer, so that is the figures we are, or the facts I am having with me, that X number of people are having lung cancer. Next concept, next component is the education. So when we are talking about the education, it is the activated knowledge or information regarding that particular topic. Like for information, I said X number of patients are having lung cancer. So X number of patients are having lung cancer is the figures I am having. So next point is to have the information regarding lung cancer. What are the causes, what are the risk factors? So I will gather all the information. I will prepare a seminar or the lecture so that I can inform all the people or educate the people regarding lung cancer. The third component is the communication. So when I am talking about the communication, it is generally the method by which I am transferring my knowledge on a particular topic to the people who are in need of that particular knowledge. So there are three components. First is the information, second is the education, and third is the communication. Next, when we come about the aims, what are the aims of IEC? So the first aim is to change the health behavior of the individual. So why we are promoting IEC? So that the health behavior of the individual is changed. If they are following any bad habits, they can change their lifestyle so that the good habits are being promoted within the individual or the group. The next is to prepare the background or the basis for the change in health behavior. When we are changing or when we are implementing anything in our lifestyle, when we are having the knowledge that why that particular habit is not good for us, or what is the harmful effect of that particular thing on our health. So it creates the basis so that we individual can change the lifestyle of our particular individual or in the community. The next is to change the norms of the society or the community. When we will know that what are the facts, what are the figures, why this particular thing is harmful for our society or for our community, then only we can change the norms and rules and regulations. Why? Because for changing the regulation or the norms of a particular society or the community, we need the strong base for which we can get with the facts and figures. Next is to facilitate the education for audience for about public health and create the awareness. So why we need IEC? So that we can promote the health education, and by getting the education regarding a particular topic, we can also spread the awareness among the society or the community. Next is to obtain the political, social and governmental support for the health activity. So we are doing IEC activity so that we can generate the awareness, we can inform the people, so that there are, when we are coming to know what are the shortcomings or what are the needs of the community, then only we are able to make different policies, different programs for the betterment of the society and the community. So these are the aims why we need IEC in our general day-to-day life and within the health sector more importantly. So what are the scopes? When we are talking about the IEC, there are different scopes in different areas or different fields. So these are basically the scopes which we are talking about in the field of health. So the first one is the primary health care. Next is the prevention or management of the communicable diseases which are there in the community or the society. The third is the RCS services. RCS services means reproductive and child health services. Next is the nutritive services. Next, family planning and personal hygiene. So these are the scopes where IEC is very much important, that we can, because we are having different facts and figures related to these topics on which we can gather the information, and we can give that information or spread that information within the community or society, so that we can make different plans, programs, we can implement that programs, and we can at last evaluate what are the betterment that has been conducted or done because of that implementation of programs. So we will start with information, education and communication. We will discuss all these three one by one. So let's start with information. So what is information? It consists of providing specific information or knowledge about the health problems and how to prevent and promote and maintain the health. So information is the basic facts and figures which we are getting, so that we can see, we can evaluate and analyze that facts and figure, and after analyzing we can prepare the different programs, so that we can do something for the community and the society for their health services. Next is, it is the integral part of health system. Why it is an integral part of health system? Because information is very much important. If we are not having the correct information regarding any disease condition or any symptoms or illness, then we cannot make any causes, we cannot make any diagnosis, and there is no management for that particular disease condition or the illness. So that's why information is very much important, as it is the primary part which is involved in the management of any disease condition or the illness. Now what are the characteristics of information? When we are gathering the information or when we are giving the information, what are all the things we should keep in mind? The first one is the population oriented. So we have to keep in mind whatever information we are transmitting, we are gathering, whether it is population oriented. If I am saying that there is a prevalence of a disease condition in India, so firstly I have to see whether in India that particular disease condition is there or not. If not, then I have to change the population. So I will say that X disease condition is been found in another country like USA, Europe, America, etc. Next is problem oriented. When we are talking about the information, we should always see that there is a problem associated with that information. Like that, I cannot say that chickenpox is eradicated from India, right? Because I am not having a problem statement. If there is a pandemic because of any disease condition, then only I can say that there is a pandemic because of that particular disease condition. So it should be problem oriented, because of that particular situation we are having or facing the problem within the society or the community. Next is employ functional and operational terms. So whenever we are talking about the information, that should have the specific terminology in the area we are having that particular information. For example, if I am taking any information or discussing any information which is related to health, then I should use the medical terminologies which are associated with that particular kind of information. For example, if I am saying anything about the disease condition, then I should use the name for that particular disease condition. For say diabetes, if I am saying, then I should use the name diabetes. Then what are the different medical terminologies which are related for that particular disease condition. The next characteristics is it expresses information briefly. So whatever the information we are giving, it should contain all the things that which are needed for the management or for the diagnosis of that particular kind of, or whatever we can take out from that particular part of information. Next is the provision for feedback. When we are taking out the information, then we should also provide our feedback, whether that information was useful for us or it was not useful for us. If it is useful, or providing feedback give us the strength, so that another person who is providing the information, he is motivated to gather the more information and provide that. Next is what are the objectives, why we are giving the information, or what are the objective of providing the information within the community or the society. The first one is to provide the reliable, efficient, relevant and up-to-date information. Why we are providing the information on the daily basis or very frequently? Because it gives us the real statistics or the data regarding that particular disease condition. It helps us to keep us up to date. It is efficient and effective working is promoted. Next is to provide the data to measure the performance. If we are not having the information, then we cannot measure the performance which we are doing. For example, if we are not having the data or the figures for a particular national program, so we cannot measure the performance, that what was the effect of that particular program in the society or the community. If I am saying I have run the RCH program for last 5 years. So if I am having the facts and figures of the last 5 years and the current facts and figures, so I can measure and compare that what are the services which were being provided and what is the use of that services, whether that services were benefit for the society, for the community or not. If by comparing we can get to know whether it was beneficial, if yes, then we can continue that program. If we are seeing that there is no changes that are happening or the programs are not beneficial, then we can make the modifications or we can discontinue the program and we can launch the new programs. Next is to assist in planning for programs by current trends. So information is needed so that we can say what is the current scenario, what are the current trends. For example, if we say in the back time, we used to say that communicable diseases are more prevalent in the society or the community, but now if we are telling in the modern time, we are seeing that non-communicable diseases are also taking over communicable diseases. So we have to study the trends, we have to gather the information so that we can see what new is developing within the country or within the society, so that we can manage that easily. Now we will come what is the uses of information. From this we can say that what can be the uses of information, why we are gathering, so that we can launch new programs, we can study the new trends, we can motivate the people by providing the information regarding that particular kind of disease condition, so that there are improvement in the lifestyle modification is there, we can plan new programs. So these are the uses of information. So the next component we will discuss, that is education or health education. So we can define health education as a process that is aimed at encouraging the people to want to be healthy, to do what they can do individually and collectively to maintain the health. So health education is basically all the education or the information that we are gathering so that we can make changes in the lifestyle of the people, so they are having a good and healthy lifestyle. Next are what are the aims and objectives of health education. So the first aim and objective is to encourage the people to adopt the sustainable lifestyle. Why we are providing the health education on the regular basis in the community or in the society, so that they are encouraged to have and to adopt a sustainable lifestyle that is good for them, that encourages them to have a good lifestyle. For example, for doing exercises regularly, for eating a balanced diet, for avoiding the fast food, etc. Next is to promote the use of health services. So what all are the health services that are there in the society or community that are provided by the government, that they are informed about that particular health services that are being provided, so that they can use it when they are in need of that particular health services. Next is the community participation and self-reliance. It is very much important when we are talking about the health education that community participation should be there. To whom we are providing the information, they should also be involved within that form of information, so that we are knowing that these people are interested in getting the knowledge regarding that particular topic, and they will also inculcate that particular knowledge within their lifestyle in day-to-day routine. Next is to develop the interest to improve the skills and change in attitude. Why we need health education? Because when we are providing the health education, it starts or stimulates getting the interest of the particular individual or the community within that particular topic, and when they are getting the interest in that particular topic, they change their attitude, they try to inculcate all that habit within their lifestyle, and it also helps to improve their skills for that particular thing. For example, if I am saying that someone is overweighted, if I am giving the health education regarding what are the causes of overweighting, what are the causes of increase in weight, what are the risk factors which are being associated, what can be the disease conditions that are associated with overweight, then it will inculcate or it will start an interest in the people or the individual within the society. No, I have to decrease our weight, I have to reduce our weight. So that is the change in attitude, and for that they will inculcate, like for example doing exercises, they will eat healthy food, they will do diet modification. So this is the objective of health education. So next is the approaches. There are mainly 4 approaches we are using when we are talking about the health education. The first one is the regulatory approach. When we are talking about the regulatory approach, it is basically when the health organization or the government is implying any rules and regulation for the people in the society. For example, if I am saying the ban of child marriage, or the seat belts for the four-wheelers, or the helmet wearing for the two-wheelers. So these are the rules which are being imposed by the regulatory bodies, the governments, for the people of the society. The next one is the service approach. The service approach means that we are providing the services by going door to door services. We are giving the services by going to their home. It does not these services are not based whether the people need it or not, but we are providing it still. The next one is the educational approach. It involves the need of the people also. In this, the services are being provided as per the need of the people. If some community need the knowledge regarding diabetes, so we are providing that particular thing, that education regarding diabetes only. If another community is requiring the information regarding hypertension, so we are providing the information regarding hypertension only. So it is on the basis or the interest of the people of that particular community or society. The next approach is the primary healthcare approach. In this, the public participation is also seen. It means they are interested, we are giving knowledge, and they are also inculcating that particular knowledge in their day-to-day life. So these are the four approaches which we are generally using for providing the health education. The next are what are the principles of health education. So mainly there are these principles which we are using when we are providing the health education. The first one is the credibility. When we are talking about credibility, it means how much trustworthy is the knowledge or the person who is giving the knowledge. If the people of the community or the society is trusting me, then only they will think that this person is giving us the valid knowledge and we should use that knowledge. The next is the interest. So what is interest? If the people to whom I am giving the health education or the community in which I am giving the health education, if that community is not interested in that particular topic, they will not listen to me. That is the very, for example, I can say if I am teaching a topic in the class that is not related to their syllabus, or it is very much boring, then the class will definitely not listen to me. So the interest is very much important when we are providing the health education. The next one is the participation. There should be the public participation in the health education only. Then only we can understand or we can see that whether the people who are participating, who are listening to us, is inculcating all that thing which we are telling to them in their day-to-day life. Next is the motivation. Motivation is also very much important, because if they are not motivated to inculcate the change or to bring change in their attitude, they will not grasp my knowledge, they will not use whatever I am saying to them or telling to them. Next is known to unknown. It is very much important that firstly I should when I am starting the health education or when I am providing knowledge to them, I should start from something that they are knowing. For example, if I am saying I am giving a lecture or the health education regarding diabetes, so I should start what is diabetes, that diabetes को हिंदी में क्या बोलते हैं, that is from where we should start. Why? So that they can relate to me. If I am directly going to the management or directly telling the name of medication, they will not listen to me or they cannot connect to me. So we have to start from known things and then we have to proceed to the unknown things. The next one is the reinforcement. It is also very much important. The reinforcement is also of two types, the internal reinforcement and the external reinforcement. When we are talking about the internal reinforcement, it is the knowledge or the boost which we are getting from the inside of ourselves. No, I have to do this, I have to change my attitude so that I can reduce my weight. And what is the external reinforcement? That I am getting some incentives from somewhere, that if you are losing your weight, then you will get a gift. So that is the external reinforcement that helps the people to change their attitude or to bring the change in their attitude and to modify their lifestyle. Next is the learning by doing. Learning by doing means when I am saying something, maybe they are listening or not. When I write something, they can see, they will remember or not, that is to some extent. But when they are doing something, they will remember it. So that's why we are saying whenever you are providing any health education or I am providing any health education, ask the community or the people in that particular gathering so that they can show me what I have told, because learning by doing is very much important, and by doing ourselves we are remembering it for a very long time. The next one is setting an example. When we are providing the health education or any education on any topic, then we should set the examples also, because by examples only we have the tendency to remember for the more time. Next is good human interaction or good human relation. If I am giving the health education, then I should also have that good human relation with the gathering to whom I am providing the information, because if I am not having a good relation between the informer or the person who is providing the knowledge and the group to whom the information is provided, then there is a barrier in between, so they will not grasp all the knowledge that I want to give to them. Next is the feedback. Feedback is also very much important when we are talking about health education, because I came here, I said anything, I taught you, but if I am not getting the feedback whether it was good, whether it was informative, or there is a need to change anything, then I will not change it for the next education also. So the feedback is very much important so that I can improve myself also, so we are giving more better education in the next time. Next is the leaders. You should have a good leadership quality when you are providing the information, because if you are saying in a assertive way, in a strong voice, then only the people will listen to you. If you are not having the leadership quality, then the people will not take you seriously, and they will not, if they are not taking you seriously, then ultimately they will not take your health education or the information that you are providing seriously also. So these were the principles that are very much important when we are talking about the health education. So the third component that was in IEC, that is communication. We will discuss that. What is communication process, what is the whole process, what are the different types of communication, and what are the methods and barriers in communication. So let's start with communication. So firstly, it was derived from the Latin word communicare, which means to participate or to inform or to impart knowledge. Next is communication can be defined as the process of exchanging the thoughts and ideas. So communication is basically the means by which I am communicating my ideas with the people, with the society or the community or the individual. So there is a whole process when we are talking about the communication, that how I am sending the message, what are the different channels of sending the message, there are any interruptions or not, then who is receiving the message, and what is the feedback of the message. So when we are talking about the process, the first one is the sender. The sender is also called the encoder, because he knows what message is to send and he formulates the message basically. So the sender is also our encoder. So after we are encoding the message, I have encoded the message, I will select a route. Firstly the message what I have to send, then I will select the channel, by what means I have to give the information, whether I have to give the information over the phone, or I have to write a letter, email, or by the gestures only. So that is the channel of communication, that what mean I am using for imparting the education towards the receiver. The next one is the receiver. The receiver is also called the decoder, because whatever message I am sending, he should be capable of decoding the message and to understand what I have said within the message. So during the whole process, there is a component that is called the noise or the interruption. It can be any interruption, that is also called the barriers. It can be any physical barrier, physiological barrier, the cultural barrier, or the environmental barrier. So the noise here is the environmental barrier. So after I have encoded the message, then I have selected the channel, I have selected the message, and the receiver got the message, he or she decoded the message, then he have to provide the feedback, whether whatever information you wanted to send, he or she has received the same information, or there is any change in the information. So that I will come to know when I am getting the feedback from the receiver itself. So this is the whole process which we are following when we are talking about the communication. So there are different types of communication. Now what are the different types of communication? The first one is the verbal communication or the non-verbal communication. The verbal communication means in which I am talking to the person, to the receiver directly by using words and by using our voice. So that is the verbal communication. When we are talking about the non-verbal communication, it includes all the things in which I am giving the message in the written form or by gestures. If I am giving in the written form, then it is written type of communication, or when I am using the gesture or by making the faces or by using my body language, that is the gesture communication. The next type of communication is formal communication or informal communication. The formal communication is the communication that is been taking places within the formal way, within the institute, between two people or the which are in the different designation or the positions. But when we are talking about the informal communication, so informal communication is when we are having the conversation within the friends, within the groups. We can use different languages, we can be very free when we are communicating in informal communication. But when we are doing the formal communication, we have to be restricted within the criteria that we have to follow, that is given by the institution. The next is the horizontal communication or the vertical communication. What do you mean by horizontal communication? Horizontal communication is the communication when we are doing or communicating or transferring the knowledge or information within our colleagues only. If I am saying I am the lecturer, I am informing within my department, within all the lecturers in the college, then it is the horizontal communication that is being transferred within us between a particular post, at a particular post. But when we are talking about the vertical transmission or vertical communication, then it means that I am getting the information from the higher authorities. There is a channel from top to bottom or bottom to top. Whether the dean is saying something, then the information is being received by the principal, then the principal is forwarding the information to all the teachers, then the teachers is forwarding the information to the student, or the vice versa. So this is the type of vertical communication. Either it can be from bottom to top or top to bottom. The next type of communication is one-way communication or two-way communication. So one-way communication is that in which one person is standing in front of the gathering and they are telling or giving the information regarding a particular topic. In this only the speaker is having the authority to speak, and only he or she is speaking, and the gathering is only listening. But when we are talking about the two-way communication, in this both the receiver and the sender are participating. If I am coming here, I am saying something, if the people who are in the crowd having any doubt, they can ask, then it is a two-way communication. So when we are talking about one-way communication, it can be lecture or the seminar. But when we are talking about the two-way communication, it can be any panel discussion, symposium, or the debate. Next are what are the methods of communication, by what all methods we can communicate. So the first is on the basis of AV aids. What kind of AV aids we are using? The full form of AV aids is audio visual aids. If I am using only the audio aids, then it is audio communication. If I am using the only video aids, then it can be the video communication, that I am showing something. But if I am doing both, that is audio visual, then it is audio visual communication. In this I am speaking also and I am showing something to the people or the gathering, then it is audio visual communication. The second method is on the basis of approach. There are mainly three kind of approach. First is the individual approach, the second one is the group approach, and the third one is the mass approach. When I am talking about the individual approach, then I am talking to the person individually. Only I am there and only one person is there to whom I am talking. So this includes, like, if I am having the visit, patient visit is there, home visit is there, or any counseling is there. When I am talking about the group approach, it means there are certain number of people to whom I am interacting, but these certain number of people are limited. It can be 200, it can be 100, or it can be 10 also, but I know how much amount of people are there, what is the number of people. So it can include the lecture method, seminar method, discussion method. When I am talking about the third type of approach, that is the mass approach. In this there are lots of people that I am not having the count also. There is uncertainty of the number of people with whom I am interacting. So in this kind of approach, mainly we are including the media, mass media, TV, radio, exhibitions, and health museum. So these are the types of method which we can use for communication. Next are what are the barriers of communication. There are mainly four types of barrier. The first one is the physical barrier, in which there is any problem in the hearing or there is any problem in the speaking of the communicator or the sender. The next one is the physiological barrier. It means the person to whom I want to give the information is not having that much intellectual level, or there is having any neurological problem in understanding. The third one is the cultural barrier. It includes all the religion, caste, culture. Because of that, the person or the receiver is not able to understand what I am saying, or they don't want to inculcate in their daily life or in their daily lifestyle. The next one is the environmental barrier. It includes all the noises, if there is any construction going or there is any interruption because of external environment in between the communication. So that is the external or the environmental barriers. So there are mainly 4 types of barriers we studied today. So in today's lecture we mainly discussed what is IEC, what is information, what are the different objectives and aims of information. Then we studied about the health education, that what is health education, what are the aims and objectives, and what are the different principles which we should follow when we are providing or preparing a health education. Lastly, we studied regarding the communication. What is communication? That it is derived from the Latin word. What is the definition of communication? What is the whole communication process? What we should keep in mind? What are the different methods, types and barriers of communication? So by this I end my lecture. Hope to meet you soon. Hope so. There is no doubt left. Thank you.